everyone, and welcome to Making Art Public. Today, on this episode, we have the wonderful, world-renowned, fascinating, extraordinary Tim J. Leary. Not to be confused with the other guy. We got the real guy right here. Welcome, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us today to bless us with your beautiful art. We're so excited to meet you.
Well, you too. It's great to be here and to talk to you today.
I'm so happy. So let's get started. Where did you grow up? Where are you originally from? How did you get to the Coachella Valley?
Well, that's a circuitous route. I was born in New Jersey and lived on the East Coast for most of my life. I came to California, first to San Francisco in '92. I had a great time there. But some 5 years ago or so, my husband and I moved here to Palm Springs to retire. Retire. It's not exactly what I'm doing. But it's given me a great opportunity to spend much more time on my art and all that. I've spent time in Florida and Connecticut as well. So
what part of Florida?
I was in Orlando.
Oh, wow.
Most of my family has moved there. All of my siblings are there with their families and kids and stuff. And, but I went the other way. I spent a few years in Orlando. And then 11 years, I think, 11 or 12 years in Connecticut where I met my husband. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, there's a few things that we have in common, a little Orlando passageway. So how did moving around in the country, did that help influence your art? Did your art change when you moved from location to location? Did it become more refined?
Well, that's a great question. I think, I guess art work does get more refined, but it has more to do with time than location. My observation has been that each area has their own style of art. So the art that we love here in Palm Springs is a little different than the art that they loved in Connecticut. Not that they wouldn't necessarily love the art we love here, but the stuff that they focus on is different. So each town, or San Francisco is, I think, a really good example of that. Northern California and Southern California has a much different aesthetic. But I started my career doing window displays a long time ago. And so that was something that I could move with from place to place and find work doing that. So I was able to follow, but as I'm now at this stage of my life and career, as I look back and I have to talk about biographies and stuff, I realize that the kinds of lines and colors and shapes that I love now are the same as ever. That my aesthetic, it has refined, of course, but that has to do with the time more than the place. And so yeah, that has there's a thread that goes through it.
And have your colors changed because of that too?
Yeah, color is interesting. Part of my work has been design, like interior design. That's a part of the window display thing. And colors go through trends and times, not as rapidly as fashion, but they still do in architecture and design. So yeah, I think they've changed a little bit, but it's similar palettes, but different. Like when I lived in Orlando, they were more pastels, greens and melon colors. But now here in the desert, they're a little richer reds and darker greens.
So what was your influence to create the bench that you created for downtown Palm Springs? Well, uptown. I've got to say uptown now.
Uptown, baby.
Uptown, sweetie.
It was one of those projects where I knew immediately what I wanted to do. I based it on a painting I did a few years ago And I did a series of things that were similar to that with circles and interactions and intersections. Um, and so it was an instantaneous thing. I was thinking of it in terms of um, Palm Springs, mid-century modern thing. That's, you know, that's very much our thing, especially in the design district. You see so much of that. And I'm also a docent at the Palm Springs Art Museum, so I see a lot of the bit about architecture around here, and I just love it. So that, yeah, so I think all of those things kind of came together, and I knew immediately when I decided to do this exactly what I wanted to do.
So tell us more about your bench. I mean, because your lines and your shapes are so prominent and beautiful. Was there a story or something that spoke to you louder than anything else when you were doing it and creating it?
Well, you know, this kind of work is about geometry, so it goes back to, you know, way back when in the dark ages when I was doing drafting. When I was in high school, I took drafting classes. So that's about triangles and shapes. And I just love that. So that's where, you know, that thread has never left me. So it's more about a study of juxtaposition. It's about where the lines come together and the shapes that they create and how the colors relate to one another. In the process of doing this, I did a lot of pictures as I was going each day that I was out there. Um, and before I painted in the dark brown lines that separate the colors and the shapes, it was looking a little like an Easter egg because the purple and the yellow next to each other are like an Easter egg, right? But and the color in between them was white. So once the brown, dark brown lines went in, that really defined it and it grounded the colors a bit more. So um,
Sounds
so
like a metaphor for the world. No.
that could be, yeah. So
Definitely.
yeah, so for me, it's about it. For me, it's always about juxtaposition and putting things together and seeing how they look together.
Now, are there any particular artists that influenced you or artists that you loved because of their geometric shapes or colors or anything like that? Who were the artists that you just fell in love with through your journey?
Well, good question. I started the first, you know, the first notice of things for me was in the like the mid-century abstract expressionists that lived close to New York, and you know, so we were seeing people like I always loved Jackson Pollock, but in terms of the geometry, it's Bauhaus and Kandinsky and Miro. I love Miro, even though he's more surrealist than um, you know, than any of the other ists, more than a cubist, more than an abstract expressionist. But he was very experimental in his work, and he brought weird shapes and colors and textures together. And so that's the stuff. It's the textures, and to me, it's all like physical. It's like what is you want to do? You want to touch it? You know, and at sometimes in the past, I would add sand when I lived in San Francisco, sand to my paintings because I wanted to see the texture and the color. And that created a little refraction in color as well. So yes, so mostly that's where it all started. So I have a love for Bauhaus, which um, you know, which I continue to learn about the
Yeah,
Bauhaus school.
another shared love that we have together. So, tell us exactly where is your bench located?
Well, I am midway. I'm on, is it North Palm Canyon at that point? I think it is. I'm midway between Alejo and Amato. I say it that way because you got to turn left on Alejo to get to Amato on that one-way street. I'm halfway down. I'm near the Galleria and in front of the Blue Coyote Grill.
Well, we cannot wait to sit on your bench and feel all the tactile movement. I mean, just the pictures alone, it just jumps up off the page. It's such a beautiful bench. And do you have a website or Instagram that you can tell us about so we can look at more of your work?
Oh, yes, yes. timjleary.com. And I have a gallery over at Backstreet Art District. And I'm also Tim J. Leary on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. But yeah, I do. Instagram is an art place for me.
Right.
I
So
get to
thank you
see and
so
share.
much, Tim. We enjoyed talking to you so much. I mean, I could talk to you all day. I mean,
Uh,
just because we're doing these short formats so we can get it all onto it, so we can get it out to the masses. But next time, we're going to have to sit down for tea, darling, and talk all about our journey and how we've
love it.
intersected. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today on another episode of Making Art Public. I am Shonda, your Palm Springs Public Arts Commissioner. Thanks again for joining us, and have an amazing day. Be safe, wear your mask, don't spread germs. Bye.